Hey, welcome, guys. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. This is our first event in our What is a Citizen Detective series. So thank you all for coming. Some of you who may know us, my name is Ashley, and I'm one of the co-founders with Uncovered, and I'm head of community. And I have Rachel on here also, and a few other members from our team. Rachel leads our data and case research. So tonight we're just kind of set the agenda of what you can expect. Some of you I know us, that you may recognize me from your inbox when I email you every week with updates on cases, or you may just be following our work online or checking out the case visualizations that we're doing. But we're hoping to build a community around collective impact with the notion that we can visualize cold cases and unsolved cases of the murdered and missing to get more eyes and more impact on them. With the intention to bring in all of the publicly available data. So that would be anything from the podcasts that you might listen to, documentaries that you might watch, media hits that go out, or public records that exist, all of the information that exists that's been verified, that we could come, that we can trust, that we know is one central location for truth on a cold case, and visualize so we can get more eyes and more impact on them. We know people learn in different ways, so our intention is to be able to put timelines, maps, photos, bring in all of the sources of the information so people have a place to work, and then activate that community around thoughtful citizen detective work. So sharing information around digital literacy, different tools, different tricks, different sources and databases, and providing a workplace for people to go and work on these cases together, pulling in information and doing their own searches online to fill in the gaps, if you will, with cases that exist currently. We're building a platform to be able to do that. And as I mentioned, we're building a community at the same time. So you have a place to go and interact with people. But we're also utilizing data in that notion. And Rachel leads that with our team here. So Rachel, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Mm-hmm. First of all, I have to say, we have one of our case research volunteers on the call, Lenora. So thank you, Lenora. But yes, we collect two pieces of, not two sources of information. We're going to have information on cases individually, and then we're going to have information on cases across a broad spectrum, so we can look at bigger trends and analyses like that. But we work with people just like you to help us populate our cases out there. And we work with podcasters like Dana to really bring some eyes and ears back to some of these cases that we're really interested in and hope to get some more attention to. So if any of you are interested in helping us volunteer to visualize our cases to help us do some desktop research, we would love to hear from you in the chat box, and I will reach out to you and get you started.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Rachel. So now you know a little bit about who we are, what we're doing. So let's kind of set the agenda for what tonight's going to look like. As I mentioned, this is the first in our series of events around introducing you to other citizen detectives. So not only people who are content creators like Dana, but policy advocates, family advocates, other content creators, and people just like you who are doing some research, who are following cases and are actually kind of out there doing the legwork. But then also to show you that there are different tools that you can utilize, different opportunities to meet people. As we build our community and engage everyone, accountability is really important for us, and also inclusion. So the notion that everyone can play a role within thoughtful citizen detective work, particularly when we're working with these cases. So everyone feels like they have a role to play, that they can learn from each other, but also that the cases that we're following, that we can make sure that we're elevating all the cases that need attention, because we know that there are so many that are out there. Our goal is to visualize as many as we can for the greater impact, but we rely solely on our community too, to be able to elevate that with their own networks, with their own opportunities to talk about these cases, and the clear calls to action that we have. So this event series is an opportunity to introduce you to those people who are doing citizen detective work and have been doing it for a while, so we can learn from each other, but also an opportunity to introduce us to each other so we can start to build that community. We know who's out there doing some of this research, and we can learn from each other the cases that we're following, but also the tools that we use. So that's a little bit about what we're hoping to set up for tonight. So we'll kind of do that with a little intro we did, And then we'll kick it to the person that we're talking with tonight, which happens to be Dana. She'll kind of go through her process, and then we'll have an opportunity for questions that we can ask not only through Dana and through our team, but asking each other, because we really want to be able to build a community around what we're doing tonight. So that's kind of what the agenda is set up to be. And then we have at the end an opportunity to kind of give you a sneak peek of what we're working on next. So Anna from our product team is here, so she can kind of show you what you can expect over the next couple of months as you start to interact more with Uncovered and our platform, and what we're hoping to do moving forward with your help. So that said, let's get into what is a citizen detective. So we know that there's a bunch of different definitions. So a digital volunteer or a citizen solver, but for us, it's that notion of someone who's doing research now. It could be someone who's been doing it for years or someone who's just jumped in. So there's an opportunity to move from just that notion of consumption of information. I'm sure a lot of you are listening to podcasts, or you watch a series, or you watch documentary. That's wonderful. But here, we also know that there are people who do that, but then they maybe go a step further with Googling or finding another opportunity to learn more information about a case they just heard. You're well on your way to gathering information for your own edification purposes. This is an opportunity where we can create a platform where we can all interact. So we hope to show you more people who are doing that in the field and provide an opportunity to kind of normalize this activity, but again, making sure that we're doing it in a thoughtful way. So that's what we hope to be doing tonight. You'll notice that this is a small group. We kept it to be small, so that opportunity that we can interact with each other, we can get to know each other, we can know what we're really good at. So then as we're working on cases, we know that there may be someone else that we want to pull in, or we want to follow the work that they're doing. So if you look around this room, you may see people that you maybe see on other platforms, you maybe see in other Facebook groups, or you may see people that you've never met before, which is also wonderful and super exciting in the process that we're doing tonight. So without further ado, I'm going to set it up so I can introduce you to Dana. So Dana is a wonderful content creator. She has an amazing podcast, and we kind of got together. Dana reached out. She saw what we were working on. Dana has an amazing background, which I'll let her tell you about. But this was one of those notions where someone just reached out and said, hey, I have this idea, which is what we're hoping to create, this idea that there's level playing ground, that we all have access to each other. And we've been working on an opportunity to kind of work on cases, come alongside those content creators where we can hopefully visualize the work that they're doing through a storytelling opportunity. So this was one of those opportunities where you leave your inbox open and you respond to everything that comes in. So Dana, you want to tell people about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Dana Pohl, and I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I moved to Colorado, Grand Junction, about 28 miles away from the Utah border in 2014. Loved it there. And now I reside in Atlanta, outside of Atlanta, Georgia, in Beaufort, Georgia. So today I'm here to talk about becoming a citizen detective. How did I go about, I guess, naming myself a citizen detective? And so I want to talk about the influences. And recently, I was asked by another podcaster to do an interview with him. And his name is Clifford Stumey. And he has a podcast called Obsessed. And what he basically does is he talks about different things that people are obsessed with. And the episode that he asked me to work on was the episode about being obsessed with true crime. And so I really, in preparing for that interview, I went back and thought about what really drove me to where I am today. And so I determined that it started a long time ago. And it started with my love for reading. So I absolutely loved to read as a kid. I went to the library all the time, and some of my favorite books were mysteries. As a young child, I read Encyclopedia Brown and Nancy Drew, Sherlock Holmes. So I was super interested in detective stories. I wanted to be a detective, and I wanted to solve the crime. So when I was reading the book, I'd just try so hard to solve it before I got to the end of the book so that I would feel like I was as smart as them or smarter. So that really is, I think, the beginning of it. And then growing up in the 70s, I was exposed to stranger danger. So this was something that was new. Everybody started talking about stranger danger. Our parents were telling us, be careful, don't talk to, strangers. And the faces on the milk cartons started to appear. And I can remember sitting at my breakfast table with my bowl of cereal, just staring at the faces on the milk cartons and thinking about they're my age, they're a little bit older, they're a little bit younger, but how horrible it would be to be taken away from your family, and how horrible it would be for your family to lose you in that way. And I felt like I wanted to help, but obviously I didn't know how. I was just a child. And so that's another instance where I think these are like key factors in my life that have sort of led me in this direction. Other influences, of course, would be the shows that were popping up on in the 80s, Unsolved Mysteries, CSI. And I have to throw the tabloids in there, which might sound strange, but my grandmother loved to read the tabloids. And so she would get the National Enquirer and the Globe, and every week she would have them, and I would visit her on Sundays and I would read those from cover to cover. And I just thought it was cool because I knew what was going on. I knew all the crazy stories and all the, whether they were sensationalized or not, I just thought I was in the know. And that was something I loved, even from a young, being a young adult. So in 1996, I became a mom, and that really cemented all of this for me. My son was born in August, and in November, a young man from a town that was basically neighboring mine was kidnapped or abducted. And his mom was on the news, or a family member were on the news every night talking about this case, trying to find him. She was even on Sally Jesse Raphael looking for him, doing whatever she could to find him. And unfortunately, in January of 1997, he was found about 300 miles away, and he was deceased. And so that was a horrifying ending to that for me, especially because I had a son, and it really drove it home of how awful these situations would be for family members to experience. And then, of course, in December of that same year, the world learned about the death of the little girl named JonBenet Ramsey, and we're still focused on that story. And then along the way, Lacey Peterson, Kaylee Anthony, all these cases played major roles in my interest in true crime and citizen detective work. And just, in fact, the Kaylee Anthony case was really interesting because I literally could read all the text messages, all the court documents. I mean, everything. I couldn't believe it was there for me to read. And I was fascinated by that. My choice to pursue a degree in journalism, communication, and secondary ed is also, I think, a driving force. It just shows my interest in investigating, doing research, communicating to other people what I've learned, and then secondary ed because I like education and I like to educate other people. So I feel like this has just really just evolved out of who I've always been. Ashley, can you move that? So thank you. In 2000, I decided that I was going to take it a step further, and I decided to get a master's degree in library and information science. And it was an interesting choice really at the time because technology was just really evolving. Like when I started school in 2000, I had to telnet in to my library resources. And if you don't know what telnetting is, it was a cable that you connected to your phone line, and it made all these weird buzzing and beeping sounds. And then it would connect in, and then you'd have to go through this long process to just to get to a resource. So we didn't have, the internet as we do today, but it was evolving, and we were talking a lot about browsers and how do people perform searches? What's natural language searching look like? And so I got to work in some study groups and with some focus groups and perform those kinds of searches and be a part of the development of that. So that was super cool to me. I'm very into technology. And so this was really, ended up being a great choice. I added the K through 12 certification because, again, I love education. I love lifelong learning. And so after I got the degree in 2002, I became I worked for the county library system. So I did marketing for the county library system. And then I moved on. About 10 months later, I had the opportunity to become the director of the library that was my hometown library, the one that I went to when I was a child. And they had just broken ground on a new facility, a $2.1 million library. And I had the challenge, it was very challenging, but it was super fun. I had the opportunity to work with the contractors, work with the designers, choose the, everything from the carpet to the paint to the shelving that we decided to use. So it was a really, really fun project. And once that was complete and I settled into being the director, I felt like I was looking for another challenge. I really like big projects. And so this opportunity to become a project consultant for another library system who was trying to take library catalogs from a county of 35 libraries and pull them all together into one catalog. So I did everything from raising the money, getting the hardware, running, leading the team that actually pulled together all of the, we tested the software, we decided on the software, we made all the decisions. And then in 2007, that was a 2-year project. That project was complete. It was up and running. And now it was time for me to do something different. So I had hit all aspects of the library world practically. And I thought, well, I haven't worked at a university. And so it just happened that a position came up at a university that was about 20 minutes from my house. It's a private university called Seton Hill University. And I took the position of technology research and instruction librarian. And this was interesting because it was like a whole new world, because I was going now back to being a librarian, actually being a librarian. So I was doing a lot of research. I was learning databases, learning new technologies. Seton Hill University was the first school to implement iPads in the classroom. And so technology was huge for us and it was super exciting. So I really enjoyed the work I was doing there and I was really honing my research skills. And then I started teaching. So I was teaching students information literacy skills and library instruction. And at that time, I started watching a new show that was on TV, and it was called The Forgotten. This show starred Christian Slater, and his name was Detective Donovan, and he was leading a group of volunteers that were working to identify the unidentified. And he pulled together this group because they had superpowers. Like we say at Uncovered, superpowers. Everyone has a superpower. And so every one of these characters had a superpower. One of them worked for the phone company, so their superpower was surveillance. The other one was a woman who spoke, did so well with the families, was comforting and helped them to open up and share information. So she then took on that role. And there were others who had dealt in forensics. And so they took on the role of the forensic expert in the group. And at the end of the first episode of this show, so while I was watching it, I was thinking to myself, oh, I want to do that. Like, I want to be one of them. And I'm not kidding. I was so serious about it. I was like, I just want to be one of them. And then at the end of the show, there was a black screen that came up and it had, if you are interested in learning more about the Doe Network, visit www.doenetwork.org. And I said, okay, that's perfect. I'm going to do that. So I went to the site. I started looking around. It had all sorts of unidentified persons cases listed there. There was tons of information. I couldn't even believe it. I felt like I struck gold. Like I found this resource that not that many, even though it was on TV, I felt like not that many people knew about it. And I was super excited to be able to use it. And so through the use of the Doe Network, I found out about Charlie Project, and then I started using Web Sleuths, which was really cool because we could hold discussions, and it was a community of people that were working together. And then NamUs came on the scene a little bit later, which also offered us an awesome tool to compare unidentified cases with missing people. And so obviously this led to the birth of the citizen detective that I am today. And my name on Web Sleuths was someone's child. And the reason why I chose that is because everyone is someone's child. And I couldn't imagine what it would be like for parents to be missing their child. And it just goes back to what I said when I was looking at that milk carton. It was the same feeling of these are real people, and they've just been torn apart by someone going missing or someone being unidentified. What I really loved about this time and the resources that we had, and specifically Web Sleuths at the time, was that the discussions were focused and collaborative because there were not so many of us on there. So we all were just really focusing on, we would put a post up, and then people would come in and they would use their superpower. So we had a lot of people that had, were very skilled in certain areas. So some people had access to Ancestry, so they could look up different things on Ancestry. Other people could do a mean side by side, like the perfect comparison photo, which would help tremendously when you were trying to compare a missing person with an unidentified person. And so there were people that knew databases like county records databases really well. So we would all come together and work on a case together. And I really enjoyed that. I thought that was, just the sense of community there was amazing. So today, obviously that has grown. And we have multiple places where you can build a community like that and talk about cases. So we have Reddit and Facebook pages, groups, blogs, podcasts, YouTube. I mean, the list goes on. And growth has its pros and cons, as we all know. So the pros are there's so many more people interested in doing this now. There are a lot more citizen detectives out there. There are, now we have more skills we can utilize, more people who can help us work on these cases. The con is that these platforms, all of these, too many platforms, I think, for the discussion to be focused anymore. It is now diluted because there are multiple platforms. You can't have these really kind of research focused collaborative conversations with all the information in one place because it's just not. And pulling that information together is very difficult. It takes a long time to go through a Reddit post and pull that together, and then go to the Facebook pages and pull that. And then, maybe there's a blog or a podcast. So it's very hard to kind of aggregate the information these days. So that was, to be honest, it was becoming very frustrating to me. And so my thought was, I am going to create a true crime podcast, and I am going to put as much information into this podcast, like the kind of thing that makes me happy. So what I did was I created True Crime PI. I focused it or created a niche of missing and unidentified from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, because those were the cases that I was super familiar with and really enjoyed researching. I knew that it had to be investigative. I did not want to just retell the story that is already out there. I wanted to be able to dive deep and dig up information that might bring this case closer to being solved. So I included the investigative piece. The educational piece is is very important to me as well. And that is when, this case that I worked on, it happened in 1984. The question comes up in your mind: did they test the clothing for DNA? Wait a minute, could they test the clothing for DNA? Was it even available in 1984? So those kinds of questions are what I kind of put into the podcast, and then I answer those questions. So I'll do the research to find out about DNA, about medical devices. So this case had medical devices found at the scene. Were they tracked in 1984? No, they weren't. The FDA didn't start tracking those until 1993. So that's the kind of information I like to share with the listeners. I also have wanted it to be a transparent step-by-step process, so anybody listening can say, hey, if she can do it, I can do it. And this is how she did it. It's very clear. It seems relatively simple. So that's what I'm trying to do, is just make it, very transparent and easy for someone to follow. And then obviously to engage citizen detectives. So to kind of bring people together in one place to listen to a case and to focus on that case for whether it's 7 episodes or whether they decide to go to the Facebook page or the group to make a comment or to ask a question, or even like I did some research on that shirt that they found and here's what I found. So and it's been going pretty well. It's to me, I'm not as happy with the Facebook pages. They're difficult for me to maintain. They're hard, they're just not really made for what I want to do with them. So, but I have had some feedback, and we have had some conversations about this case. So it's pretty cool that is happening. The case itself name is case UP 10724. For those of you who don't know, UP means unidentified person. So those of you who haven't used the NamUs database, this unidentified female was found in Cobb County, Georgia on May 10th, 1984. And in order to create 7 episodes, I used a multitude of resources, and that's what you'll see here. Interviews with detectives, and I interviewed the forensic artist who created her reconstruction, the internet, newspaper.com, Google Scholar, podcast, paid databases. I mean, a multitude. It takes a lot of sources to kind of pull together all of the information. So that is, basically how I have structured this podcast. I'm super excited about the way it's going. I really am enjoying doing the work. When I met Ashley and Rachel, I really felt like we would make great partners. We were on the same page. We were trying to do basically the same things, only with different platforms. And I think there are really cool ways that we can work with each other. I'm happy to provide my materials and to have Uncovered post my cases so that maybe I can use them as a resource. I no longer have to worry about, where's the picture of the shirt? How do I, posting all of those things in multiple places. Now, Uncovered will do that for me, and conversations can take place there, which I would love. And so I'm super excited about this partnership and being able to work with Uncovered. And I really want to thank you for having me today. And I hope that this has been informative of, if you're seeking to become a citizen detective or to work with citizen detectives, we're all just normal people, like Ashley said, who are just interested in true crime and helping others.
Awesome. Dana, thank you so much for sharing your background, your motivation, and the case that you're working on, which, I mean, the level of research that's in here is phenomenal. So I want to open it up now because this is an opportunity. We're all in here. We're all interested. What kind of questions do you have about Dana's process? Maybe some of the tools she's utilized, or what are you working on that you want to share with the group, kind of share your process? Or what kind of questions do you have? So you want to raise your hand or throw something in the chat and unmute yourself, because again, we're small groups. It's an opportunity to talk with each other. Wonderful. Everyone's thinking of their questions. Yes, I see it. Go ahead. You raise your hand.
Can we unmute them?
Oh, there you go.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah. I was just wondering how much time you devote to this, maybe when you started versus now that, you developed this further.
Is that question for me?
Yes, I'm sorry, Dana. Yes.
Oh, okay.
And this is Jeanette, by the way. I'm sorry.
Hi, Jeanette. So yeah, it's a lot. So when I started, the podcast is a lot, but I was very passionate. So I did spend a lot of time over the years. So I've been doing this since for probably about 12 years or so. And I spent a lot of time. I had a lot of sticky notes, a lot of, cases that I was following. And unfortunately, there are so many cases that sometimes you're getting drawn in a million different directions. So you'll be like, oh yeah, I'm working on this, and then all of a sudden something pops up about another one or whatever. So over the years, I just spent a good bit of my free time because I really enjoy doing it. The podcasting is a totally different story. I mean, because I'm choosing to do this as an investigative story, because I want to dig up information that hasn't not been told to the public, I have to wait for, you find someone to contact, you wait for them to contact you back, you put it together, you release it. And this podcast, this series, so this season is one series. So it started out, it was going to be an episode, I thought. But then I located a detective. His name's Detective John Dawes. He was retired homicide and cold case detective in Cobb County, Georgia. And he was so willing to give me information about this case that it expanded my case to 4 episodes. And, 4 more episodes than I had expected. And then I had asked him a simple question about who he thought the prime suspect was. And I had my suspicions myself. And it just so happened that who he said was the prime suspect matched my suspicion. And then I did a whole episode on that serial killer, Samuel Little. So it just expanded out. So I'm letting this take me where it wants to take me. I'm not defining it up front. I'm just kind of letting it flow and see what happens. But it really is hours of work, but I love it. I absolutely love it.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Laura, I think you raised your hand also. Did you have a question?
I was just going to tell a little bit about what I do. Can you all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a beagle sleeping on my lap, so I keep moving my laptop.
I love it.
But I own a very busy real estate company, but I kind of slowed down from it 2 years ago and let my kids take over. Because I'm so into doing all this stuff.
That's awesome.
And 3 years ago, I started True Crime Club here in my community.
Cool.
We meet, research, study cases, and we do pretty good. I have a retired nurse. I chased after, we have a university here, the anthropology department person.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, a year later, made a connection with her. So we have an excellent forensic person. And I told her about some bones that have been found here in the early 80s. I do have connections because I'm getting kind of known with the sheriff's department. I can call and ask them anything, one person there, different people, and they actually respond. And so I was able to get the bones from the sheriff's department, take them over there, because these are from 1981. Mm-hmm. We realized it's a murder. So we're on our way to try to figure out who this person was.
That's awesome.
So we're in the process of that.
Mm-hmm.
I got the police report yesterday. It had been missing. They called me yesterday and said, we finally found it. They immediately sent it to me. So we've got a lot of respect, surprisingly. I have to say. I do have Facebook pages of people who have been murdered, people who have been missing. We did solve one pretty quick, a murder. And we just have a lot of stuff going on. So I do a lot of this and it is time consuming. So it's
Laura, everybody is excited about your group and they want more information on it. So you'll have to share that with us in the chat if you can.
Well, just real quickly, I lost my hearing 7 years ago. 2 years ago, I got cochlear implant. I was still able to function and everything. And I thought, I've always loved doing this. I'm sure there's other people like me. And so we have a private Facebook page. We meet a minimum once a month at my office, sometimes 3 or 4 times a month, depending on what we have going on. And I started 3 years ago. I kick people out quickly if they're not active. It's not for the curious or the nosy. You have to research. You have to be active. Mm-hmm. And everybody brings their superpower. I heard you say that. Mm-hmm. We all have different backgrounds and things like that. So it's really, been very good. We're making good headway.
That's awesome, Laura. Yes. How many people are in your group?
Right now we have 15.
Wow. Is that the biggest it's been, or?
That's the biggest it's been. I get people wanting to be in it, people who join, but if they are not active, they don't research, they don't do anything. It's not for the curious, is what I tell everybody, because we do discuss sensitive stuff. Mm-hmm. In fact, there's a lot of things I don't put on the page that I only discuss in the meetings. Mm-hmm. So, because I don't want all the stuff to get out. So, but yeah, it takes up a lot of my time, but we're getting a lot of respect. I'm getting known for it. I had somebody actually call me, a mother whose daughter committed suicide. So she thought 5 years ago. I already knew about it because I know a lot of stuff around here. And I knew her boyfriend's a bad, bad guy who's in jail right now for a bad domestic assault. So I was able to go to the police department, mainly because they consider it closed. Got, all 72 pictures, the report. So I'll be speaking to that mom tomorrow. I took it to my group again, because we have a nurse, we have men, we have women, we have different backgrounds. We spent 4 hours going over that. So
that's awesome. How do you work when you work with each other? What kind of tools do you use? Are you working in real time with each other in Google Sheets, or are you kind of focused and then you come together?
I guess I keep up with it all. I'll put something on the page and I'll say, hey, I'm looking for researchers for this. Can you research? Do you know anybody? Something like that. Really, we get a lot of stuff done in our meetings.
That's awesome. So actually meeting in person with each other is where you think you get the most work done then? Or
yes, yeah. But we've made such good connections, I mean, there's certain people in law enforcement high up that came to me and goes, if you ever want to know anything, here's my phone number. And I was like, seriously? And so I'll just text and I get told immediately what I need to know. So I've earned respect in my community. We're the largest city between St. Louis and Memphis. We work several counties out. All the people right now are local in my club, but I mean, you don't have to be if you can be a researcher. But I'm getting contacted a lot now for missing people. I'm so excited to finally get working on that. And I've wondered who that man was for so many years. And the fact that we were able to get his bones and we're getting them tested right now. We raised the funds for it, and actually this is the second one that we've been involved in. And now we've got the university doing it. They weren't doing that before. So it's just, it gets in your blood and it's taking my time, but I really feel good about it. What we do, like this unidentified man, he'd probably be in the 80s or 90s now from what the age we think, but hopefully we're bringing peace to him, peace to him. So instead of being a box somewhere for 40, 50 years, we're going to bring some peace to him. But there's a lot of stuff we do. I work with a family I've never met whose sister was murdered, but we wasn't really our Facebook page that did it, but she didn't know how her sister's murderer was discovered in Texas, murdered in our community. But someone who found my Facebook page looking for the murderer of Monica contacted me from Texas and told me the story about how he realized this was a bad person. So I was able to connect this guy from Texas with the sister in Illinois so she could thank him for what he did in getting this man arrested. And then we ended up finding out he committed her sister's murder here in Missouri. So they were able to meet, discuss. And Christy sends me, 2 Christmases now, we've been working together. She sends me a card, lets me know. It just makes me feel so good. And I will be at that trial when we finally have it, when this COVID stuff's over and they open up jury trials, I'll be there. So because, and she's just, I keep that whole community updated. Every time there's something happens in court, she tells me that her community in Illinois goes to my page. She just tells me to like the page about her sister. So they know when the trial is coming. They know when a hearing's coming. They know when a case review is coming. So she says it just helps because she doesn't have to answer all those questions all the time. So there's a lot going on.
That's wonderful, Laura. You mentioned the family doesn't have to answer all those questions and kind of keep that information. So it sounds like you're relieving that burden for them, but keeping them in the loop the whole time with information.
And we do not work on anything. I don't until I talk to the family. I got hold of Monica's sister. Her name's Christy. I found out who she was by newspaper articles. And I found her on Facebook, sent her a message, told her about myself. And I said, I like to make a Facebook page and do this and this and this research, with your permission. I don't want any money. I said that up front. And she responded and she said, I've had so many people message me, but I feel good about you. So we made a really good Facebook page called Help Find the Murderer of Monica Keylance. It's active still. And, it's got the story of the guy in Texas and I was in on there, but we keep that page up till we finally had justice. So that's just one little thing, but yes, there's so many cases that's really sad.
Mm-hmm.
So
wonderful. I see we have some more hands raised. Jenny, I see you have your hand raised. You want to unmute?
Yeah. I feel like I'm a little behind the 8 ball here because I tried to read Nancy Drew when I was a kid and they were too scary for me. So this is my my Nancy Drew time, I guess. My questions are, I guess, to Dana and Laura. First, how do you pick a case? And then after you've picked that case, literally, what is your next step?
So, okay, so I just picked a case, and I like to pick a case based on like there's got to be something. There's so many cases, and so I need something to like kind of grab me. So the case that I work on in the first season of True Crime PI is the Cobb County Jane Doe, and I came across her because I was going to write a blog post for it was called unidentified.org, and I started researching Georgia cases because I had just moved to Georgia, and I'm like, oh, that would be cool to do a local case. So I found her, and right at the same time as I was writing this blog post, the sketches that Samuel Little drew of his victims were released in the newspaper. And there was a sketch, there were some sketches labeled Atlanta, Georgia. And one of those sketches had red hair, and the reconstruction of my doe and the hair found at the scene was auburn or reddish. And so I said, wow, that kind of looks like that could be her. And then I looked at the dates and it said 1983, 1984. He was always giving ranges because he couldn't remember because he had 93 victims. So I guess he struggled. But anyway, and so I wrote the blog post and included a picture of that sketch and said, could this be our doe? So that got a lot of play. This was in 2018. So that got a ton of play. She was about the right size, like she had on a white shirt. She was a smaller woman in the sketch. Like he would label them sometimes sizes. So she was a smaller woman, he said. And so I just really thought there was a pretty good chance that that was her. And so that drove me to really do this case because it was on my mind forever. It just, that I did that blog post. A lot of people were like, wow, kind of looks like her, blah, blah, blah. And then what ended up happening was they matched that sketch to another woman who was found in 1977, strangled, dumped on the side of the road. He had, his MO was written all over her. And so they matched that sketch to her. And I was kind of disappointed that happened. I was like, oh, I really thought it could have been the doe that I wrote the blog post on. And so they did that, I think, in 2019. And so then I said in 2020, I'm going to start a podcast. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to continue this case because there's so much more to know about this case. And she's super unique because she did have a plate in her face because she had a broken orbital bone. She had pins in her ankle. She may have been wearing a wig. And so there were unique characteristics about her. She had lots of clothes on. One of them happened to be a work shirt with the name George on it from a company located in Cobb County. And so there were all these unique things. And I thought this would be a great case. So that's really what drove me to that. And then if you listen to the podcast, you'll see that the revelation is that when I interviewed Detective Dawes, and I was almost afraid to ask him the question, could she be a victim of Samuel Little? He told me he said, the most potential suspect in this case is Samuel Little. So I was shocked because no one had ever said that before. He was the first person to say that other than me just thinking it. And so he went through and explained why. And for all the same reasons, his victims were sex workers. They thought she was a sex worker. So, the multiple, the way she was killed, they think it was asphyxiation. She was dumped on the side of the road. Where he dumped her was similar to where he dumped other people, just location wise. And so, so that was super cool to me that my little theory may have panned out. And so it's really interesting because there's a task force in Georgia and they are currently re-examining the case based on this podcast. And I'm super excited about that because they did not have this doe on their radar to maybe be an unmatched confession to one of Samuel Little's victims. And now they do. So they're doing that. And so that's what drove me to that case. The next case I'm doing is, it's a Saginaw, a young boy between the ages of 16 and 20, so a young man, was shot to death in an apartment in 1988 in Saginaw, Michigan. He's been unidentified for all of these years, and he is currently being crowdfunded. His case is being crowdfunded for DNA profiling and genealogical research on DNAsolves.com, which is part of Othram is the lab, and then DNA Solves is their public interface. And you can, if you're interested, you can go out and donate to his case. And currently he's at about $500, and we need $5,000. And so my next case is going to be his case. I talked to the detective. I've gotten some new information that I can share in the episode, and I'm going to try to drive my listeners to donate so that he can finally be identified. So that's the way I am picking cases.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Dana. Jessica, it looks like you had your hand raised also.
I do, yeah. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I think my question was the same as Jenny's, basically that I didn't know where to go. Like, I've been a true crime fanatic for forever, but like I start browsing Reddit and I start browsing, Facebook, and I just get overwhelmed, like where do I start? And I think that's what drove me to this website and this group when I found it. It's like, oh, thank God somebody's like acknowledging that it's so overwhelming and we can maybe come together. So that was kind of one of my questions, is where do you go next? Mm-hmm. And then my other question is, and I apologize for the dog, does anybody feel like you have to show your credibility? I think lately there's been some really good examples of citizen detectives who have made a really big impact. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking like Michelle McNamara is probably the most recent, most famous one. But like, how do I just show that I'm not somebody who's like wanting to play police or like play detective, and like I'm serious and I have a lot to offer? And I guess maybe this question is for anybody, especially Laura, you were talking about how you're getting contacts. Like, how do you do that?
Well, I think that's part of our community. What we're trying to build here is to create a space for people like us that are really interested in this and want to do something. I personally had the same problem. Like, we would listen to these podcasts and think, gosh, I mean, how can I help? I don't even know where to get started, right? Mm-hmm. And so that, we're trying to solve for that problem with our community by saying, okay, we're going to cover this case and we need you guys to help with X, or we need to help you guys to help us with Y. And so there's specific tasks, and in our coming soon, actually, probably with some of you guys, if you want to volunteer to help with case research, we have a community set up that we're creating where all of you can come in together and we can talk with it. We will have our own space to talk about a particular case. And, I think we build credibility together as a team. And as we can prove to people that we are, we can really push social pressure, or we can dig up new information, or we're just acting together as a good team, I think we will build that along the way. Uncovered is reaching out all the time to make different connections with people and bring them in. And I think we just slowly grow our team as a group. But if any of you are interested in that, do please let us know, because we are, getting close to creating that. And we would love to have you guys come in there and Jessica, use your own talents. We believe everybody has a superpower. You may not realize it, but you do know how to do something that the rest of us doesn't know how to do, even if it's like We talked to someone the other day who said, I don't have a superpower. And then she went on to say, do you guys know about this website that I always go to? And neither Ashley or I knew about it. So that is really what we're trying to do with this space, is to give everybody a place where they feel welcome and valued and can make a contribution and share what they're doing so we can all learn and grow from it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Jessica. Where do I fit in? What can I do? And Rachel, thank you for reiterating, like, we want people to feel like they can bring anything to the table, even if it's the smallest, and even if it's just to learn, that we want people to feel that this is a process that they can be part of, and move people from just kind of consuming all of this information related to unsolved cases or cold cases, but move people to action with some of those, even those small calls to action. So some of the cases that you see visualized on our site right now have share this flyer, even with your own network. Like, that's something small that you can do, because you don't know who you don't know. So even putting that information out there lets some of these cases get in front of people who haven't seen them before. Or some of it is listening to things and confirming, do you hear the same thing? Or filling in the gaps within a timeline. When we're working with family advocates, or when we're working with just some of these cases that are cold too, we know that there are big stretches where there's just nothing that's been accounted for. So if we can exhaust everything that we can find on the internet, then that will be a place to start, just because some of this stuff we know has been sitting there for a while. Maybe no one's looked at it, or maybe it just exists in a file folder because it is so many years old that there's no digitization. So if we can go back and pull through some of those public records that are now online, or we can confirm information or locations, that's even just a place to start. And I know that Deanne kind of asked, like, what are we hoping to kind of get out of this? It is that notion of introducing each other, sharing what we're good at, what we want to learn. We want to be able to train you too. So if you're interested in learning about something, so this is a series to introduce you to each other, people who are already doing it in the field, like Dana, but also, what do you want to know how to do? I know I've gotten some feedback related to public records and FOIA requests. So you're the first to know that starting in April, we'll have a 3-part series with a national organization that focuses on freedom of information and accessing public records. So that'll be a great way for all of us to kind of go through and learn together and learn from experts and learn more information, those tips and tricks. I know a lot of you on here have also downloaded our Citizen Detective Guide. So what are some of those extra things that you want to see? What databases, what kind of tools do you want to know how to learn? So sharing that information helps us strengthen that community as well. And as Rachel mentioned, moving toward our platform and being able to fill in the gaps with those information on those cases that we have visualized that are in our pipeline. We drop our cases within sprints. So every few weeks, we drop a few more cases that are in there, but we need to hear back from the community too. What are cases you're following? What are you interested in? I know Daniel's done some research already on some cases. We've been working with him. So that's an opportunity that, you know, hey, I've been following this case. I've done some research already. I'd like to kind of share that with you. That's a wonderful opportunity for us to step in and then bring more people so that collective impact can be real.
Marilyn, our favorite typist, had a question.
Yes, Marilyn, I'd see you in here.
Oh, you do see me. Okay, I'll sit up. I'm not that short. It's just a deep chair.
It looks great.
I like to type. I know that a lot of the documents you get are long and unsearchable because they're just pieces of paper that have never been digitized, and I like to digitize them.
Awesome.
Marilyn, you should tell them what you've digitized in the past. She's got.
I worked for the John F. Kennedy Presidential Library and Museum, the NARA, National Archive and Records Administration. I worked for Presidents Truman, FDR, and some others. I can't recall at the moment.
I think that's pretty impressive. Just that, Marilyn.
For sure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. What a great superpower, Marilyn.
Absolutely.
Oh, it is a superpower, and I love doing it. I'm fast, and I'm good, and I like doing it.
So everybody keep that in mind.
Here's the police report I was sent today. I mean, I got a police report sent to me. So I'm going to be looking at this when we're done. This is about the guy I've been trying to get identified. So that might be my superpower is I know everybody. And yeah.
That cannot be understated even when you're looking for a job, right? If you know everybody.
Yeah.
Awesome. Wonderful. What about, who else is on here that wants to share their superpower, what they have, even if you know how to do a mean Google search, that is an amazing superpower. And some people don't even know how to do that. Deanna, so you have your hand raised.
This is Deanna. Sorry, the video's not on, guys. I'm in my pajamas still from the morning because I'm working from home. But my background is IT. I've been doing software development since the mid 80s, late 80s. So I'm very detail oriented. I kind of lean more towards database development work, data warehousing work, querying databases and reports and that kind of thing. So I'm very analytical. I always loved, as a kid, all the mystery shows and Agatha Christie and Sherlock Holmes, and have held a PI license in a few states, just a few months here, a few months there, kind of between jobs. They've really enjoyed that. Do occasional PI work, pro bono for friends. What else? I've worked for NSA and the FBI and the energy sector, finance, and defense contract work. And let's see. Right now I'm in the banking industry, but my real life is investigative work, and I've gone to the 2 crowd solve events that CrimeCon has had and had a blast doing that. It's like stay up all night and read police reports, and I really enjoyed that. It felt like I was able to contribute along with the other several hundred people that were there. So I guess one of my questions would be, do y'all anticipate having like virtual collaboration meetings like on a regular basis to go over particular cases, or do you more envision everyone working individually on whatever they want to work on?
That's a great question. And as we're creating the platform, there's an opportunity for both. We know some people just get energy out of working with each other, which is wonderful. And some people want to come and kind of consume the information and maybe come in and draw some correlations and then maybe share some things that way. So we're trying to create both opportunities, particularly with the community platform, a way that we can kind of create those virtual workspaces for each other. So you can go in and you can ask questions, you can store all your information that you have, and then working with our team to be able to visualize so we can get it out and push it out into the greater public as well. So we'll have people behind the scenes working on that information, making sure that it's getting up there, that it's verified, that it's accurate information. And then our team working to make sure that it's visualized for a greater impact, but then also making those connections out in the community too, with other content creators who can amplify on their platforms through a storytelling lens, or just a sheer volume of people working together. So that is kind of open-ended. So if we have cases, Rachel kind of mentioned, Anna's going to be up next to kind of walk you through what our next iteration kind of looks like. I know that a lot of you have been on our site and seen the cases that we have in there. As we start to grow, we want to create those tools for you so you could go in and do that work. And then to your point, Laura, we're able to find justice for people, even if it is just making sure that those cases stay in front of people. That's truly important also. So
just add that being part of our community, you will have the opportunity to give feedback on things that you guys would like to have. If it is virtual meetups where we all, take a couple of hours and just work through a case together, or as Anna's going to show us, particular features on our new website. I mean, you guys are going to be very critical into helping us understand where we need to go next.
Wonderful.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I think I work best when it comes to, like Laura was saying, how she runs her group, having a regular meeting time, and then people like maybe having some homework to do and then come back and meet again, to where you're having some individual work and some teamwork, because I stay more motivated when I'm working with other people and you get that energy off of each other and you can help each other. in one of the cases y'all have visualized, I think it's the Karen Bodine case, was one of the crowd-solved cases that I've worked on already. So that was kind of cool to see that on your list.
Yeah, we actually have the opportunity to work directly with Karen's daughter, Carly, too. So we're able to
I know her.
Family advocates. So that's a wonderful opportunity for us. And we feel privileged to be able to do that. But I know you mentioned too, Laura, that you run into people who are maintaining Facebook pages and it's just a lot of work. We're hearing that also. So if we can take that off family members to be able to visualize as much information, and then as a community, we can come together and be able to direct, hey, we need you to do this. We need you to work on that. And I appreciate so much what you said, Deanne, about having work and having kind of homework and assignments so we all stay accountable for each other. That's part of building this community. If we know what we're really good at and what we can learn from each other, that we do stay accountable to the information that we're putting out, but also to each other within that process. So wonderful. Dan, did you want to maybe say something? Or Daniel, I saw you raise your hand directly to me. Can you unmute yourself? There you go.
Sorry, I don't know how to work this thing.
You're great.
My iPad's fine, but this, I don't know how to do it on the computer. The timing's not good now, but I was, there's, with some of the cases that I look into, there's so many, especially like on Facebook, there's so many theories out there. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, I mean, there's case studies like on the FBI website that you can look through. Mm-hmm. Is there anything out there close to like the VICAP system for the general public or even PIs that can access? Because if you can narrow down certain aspects of certain crimes to study, you might be able to get a sense of, or at least a better sense of who you're looking for in unsolved cases. So if that's not in the works, that's something that I don't know how I could help, but I mean, I'd love to try to figure something out to at least get, cases together in a certain database that we can take certain aspects of certain cases, age range, race, location, stuff like that we can pull data together that can help us narrow down certain suspects in certain cases, because there's so many theories out there for, especially like profile wise, like everyone's got their own profile that they want to put out there. And I didn't know if there was anything out there right now. I mean, I couldn't find anything even close, but I think the data is there. I just don't know if there's anything out there that we can use to, basically, if we could narrow down half of the people that people throw out there, mm-hmm. I mean, I think it'd do a lot of good in this community.
Mm-hmm. I think you're right. The data are out there, but they're in all different pieces, right? So you've got a little bit of information over here and a little bit of information over here. And so my vision with that is that someday soon, hopefully, Uncovered will be that central database. So for instance, I worked with the Murder Accountability Project for a bit, and they pull in the Uniform Crime Report from the FBI, which is going to be changed here in a little bit. But, the Uniform Crime Report is just based on law enforcement agencies who want to report. It's not mandated reporting. So that's even spotty at best. So some of the tools that we even have that are more comprehensive still have gaps in the data. So when we start to pull in all these different data sources, whether it be NamUs or the Doe Project or the Uniform Crime Report, all of that will be dumped into the database. As I mentioned before, we'll have a case-specific look at the data, but then I also want to have the broad overview where we can sort of track the data and analyze the data, perhaps like you're mentioning, Daniel, where we can look at greater trends or pull out a piece of information to say, hey, this guy was, here at the same time this happened, or he wasn't there at the time that happened. So the short answer is I don't know of that database yet. I don't think that it exists, or it exists and it's acceptable or accessible by us. But our vision is to someday really be that powerhouse database that people like you and other people who join our community can query and have access to. Oh, you're back on mute.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
It's like it'd be nice to know, for girls or guys or whatever, under this, 30 years old, for example, that are they're married, they're single, they're in a relationship, whatever, like just knowing what's out there data wise, just to sort of, we can plug in, our own data, that's related to the case that we're looking at, to figure out, well, 90% of the time it's the husband, which, sometimes it is, or it's a stalker, or it's a coworker. It's very, I understand it's probably very complicated, but I think that even if you can rule out, because there's so many cases these days, and I think police they're going to figure out that they're shooting themselves in the foot, because with the online community that they have, people are going to start throwing stuff out there that makes sense. The police are holding so much stuff close to them to where the public doesn't know really anything. So, people will get convinced that it's the coworker. I mean, this Delphi Facebook page is, it's who's the flavor of the week kind of a thing. Where if people can go to something that makes sense, that can bring data, and what's realistic, I think that would be helpful. I mean, there's obviously cases where it could be anyone, but I think that a lot of these cases, the police are not releasing anything, whether it's the boyfriend or the husband, or the coworker, or the dad or whoever. I think it's creating a big problem, probably more so for the police. But getting something out there, I think, would be pretty important, considering how many people have access to, public data, court documents. Hopefully it doesn't backfire on us where they close off certain things, but in turn, I hope that police decide that they need to start releasing more stuff at a certain point. But if we can have something that we can we can say, well, 90% of the time it's this or that. It's probably, if we could rule out certain things in certain cases, I think that would be a big help.
So that's interesting. More like a sort of decision tree to help to point your search effort. So in this type of case, it's usually, that is interesting. I'll have to think about that. Because that's what, there are statistics out there, like probabilities, right? And I know sometimes that leads us down the wrong path into who might have committed a crime or not, but it is useful to know where to start digging first, right?
Yeah, it creates a good starting point.
Yes, I agree.
But when there's a 2-year-old case that everyone's just obsessed with, but they don't have a starting point, Facebook pages.
That's a great resource. It hadn't even occurred to me, but obviously that is some information that we could put together and share. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Danielle. We'll definitely keep that as we're starting to build, but we're at least 14 minutes over the time that we said that we are going to hold tonight, but I do want to introduce Anna from who leads our product with Uncovered, so she can kind of show you what we're looking at in the future and where we can hopefully get feedback from you guys and help to sort of build this as well. So I'm going to kick it over to Anna.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. Awesome. So you guys are asking amazing questions, and I'm so inspired by all of you, because I think we are all people who are like, are so interested in this space and so fascinated by it, but like didn't know how to help. And that's exactly what Uncovered came from. So I'm also really excited to get your feedback on what we're building. So a couple of things I want to tell you about what I'm about to show you. So number one, this is just a prototype. So it's not being, it's being built, but it's not built yet. So, but what I really want your feedback. So what do you guys see in this that you're like, this is great. You guys are definitely on the right path. But really, I also want you to tell me what you don't like or what's missing or where do you see gaps. And because you are so engaged in this community, and I'm really, really excited to get your feedback on that. So feedback wise, you can put it in the chat. We can kind of talk after. You can email Ashley. I think we'll be sending out an email following this. So however you feel comfortable giving feedback, again, all feedback is great. I'm really looking forward to you all seeing this. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Oh, the host has disabled screen sharing. So Ashley, you're going to have to give me those capabilities.
Try again. I think I allowed you to do it.
Aha, I can do it now. Thank you.
Technology.
It's so great. We're all working through it together. Awesome. Okay. So I will do the obligatory, can you all see my screen? You should see a screen that says cold cases.
Yes.
Fantastic. All right. Okay, so let me walk you through a little bit of what you are seeing here. So you come to the Uncovered website. I'm sure you all are familiar with our site. You've been there, but this is a redesign we're looking to update. And with this redesign, we want to add a couple of new features. So let me just walk you through and kind of talk you through it. So here you can see we've got a list of all of our cold cases. One of the first things you can do is you can look at all of the cases we have by city, zip code, and state. You can do a search. I also want to let you know that this prototype you're looking at, not all of the content is going to be correct here. So we have a lot of placeholder content. So don't look too close at some of the descriptions. You guys are all very, very smart true crime people, and you're going to see some incorrect information. But a lot of this is just content placeholder. So go with me on the big features here. So first we've got, again, our list of cold cases. You know, we can click on these. We can learn a little bit more about these cases. A very interactive map here. But let's get down to the cases themselves. So of course, we've got our full list of cases here. This is just an example of the amount and the types of cases we're going to have. So we've got the different cases, we've got a name, we've got a little bit of information about this case, a location and a date. And then we've got the last time that this case was updated, and that means updated on Uncovered. So we want to make sure that anytime we get new information, we're updating these cases and letting people know that, hey, something has changed, something is new. So people can come here and get the most up-to-date information. So let's dig into a case. So we did decide to kind of use Maura Murray as one of our cases to really big out, because it is a huge case. And Rachel is spending a lot of time in this case, so she knows the size of it. So this would be clicking into a case in and of itself. So this is more of the case overview page. So here you can see we give some quick high level information of what this case is. We've got a name, a quick description. We know when this case happened, and again, when this case was last updated. So a couple of actions that you can take here immediately. So number one, you can bookmark this case. So we want people when they come to Uncovered to be able to bookmark cases, get back to them, and really follow the cases that they're really interested in. The second thing you can do is subscribe to updates. So if a new news article comes out and we attach it to this case, you can be updated knowing that happens. So that's something we hear from people a lot, is they're interested in cases and they follow cases, but there's no way to know when something new is happening unless you are someone who can kind of set a Google alert. Or you can share this case and easily send it to someone. So here, you kind of get to the main pieces of the case that we'll walk through. So first is just the general overview of the case. We'll dig into the timeline, talk a little bit about sources, and you can immediately submit a tip. So if you know something, if you see something, you click there, and we're going to quickly direct you to any resource to share some information. But as we go through, one thing we want to do is really humanize people. So that's why we're very victim focused. We want to have as many pictures as we can. We want to know who these people are, because, just like Dana said, everybody is somebody's child. Everybody's life matters. And so again, trying to be very, very victim focused and bring to life kind of who they were as a person outside of this, potentially tragic event that happened. So here you can see some photos of the case. You can kind of view more photos here. So as we kind of move down through this information, so again, we want to make sure we have the data is right here. So you can kind of get that quick overview of where did it happen, when did it happen, kind of how old was this person when this happened, and then what was a little bit of the situation around it. So I think we're all really familiar with reading long form stories about cases, and we definitely want to have that type of information. But we want to go a little bit further than that. So we have that quick summary of the case. We have some sources here as well, and I'll dig into that a little bit more as we go. But one of the first things we want people to do on this case is we want them to take action. So we call this our like what's left to be uncovered space. So these are the calls to action for the case. So again, Dana mentioned a case right now that she's working on, and it's on DNA Solves, and it's only got $500. They need 1,000. So a case like that, we would pull that information here to say, what's left to be uncovered? What can you do if you are interested in helping this case? So potentially donate to a DNA Solves fundraise. You know, listen to this specific episode, share on social media with this specific hashtag. There's always things that can be done for cases. So our goal is to kind of help focus people to here are the things that we need to know. Here are the things we need really specific help with. So that's what we're hoping to do here, is to kind of help people figure out, I want to help, I want to do something. This is the place to go and figure out what that could be. So as we dig into the case, wanting to understand who are the important people in the case. So we've got all the important people. These could be people of interest. These could just be family. These could be people who are just kind of tied to the case. And we want to give people a quick way to say, kind of show me who are all the players in this case. I want to understand what's going on here. You can click in, you can get more information about the people. You can kind of see that how and if people are related to each other. So we want to always be giving people information, you know, as much information as you want or as little as you want. Some people don't want the fire hose of information. I think a lot of us want, but a lot of people do. So that's people. So one of the big cornerstones of really what we want to do when we think about looking at a case, we know that the timeline is so critical. So that's a really big piece of what we want to update that's on our existing site. So today we have events and we have a map, but our goal is to really bring those things together to say what happened and where. So this is kind of the first piece of that. So here on this case page, we've got what we call significant timeline events. So every case has a, you know, some really key events where things happen. So some cases, like the Murray case, there are lots of events, lots of phone calls back and forth, but we know there's some pretty key events that we want to call out here on this homepage. So we pull those up here, but we also give you the ability to dive into all of the cases, all the events in the case. And I'll show you a little bit more of that as well. So as we go down, and finally we get to sources. And our goal at Uncovered is to make sure that every event that we pull into a case, or every person involved in the case, we have some source of information to say, yes, this person is involved. Yes, this thing happened. And so as you can see, a lot of placeholder content here, but this is where we would pull in those sources: blogs, news articles. Rachel's done a lot of really good work around what we consider a source and what we consider a really valid source. And of course, as you get to the bottom of the page, you can see other similar cases, maybe cases that are also, you know, people who are missing, etc. But let me dive into the timeline, because this is another place I'd love to get people's feedback. I'd love to get you to, so you guys are like the first people to see this. So again, I'm really excited to get your thoughts about it. So here's a timeline that we're looking at. So again, our goal was really to tie these events with the places they happen to help people really get a picture of what's going on. So we get here first, and you can see I'm at the timeline. One thing I can do is I can filter this timeline by people. If I'm just interested in looking at one person, I can filter that down, or I can filter it by location as well. If you are a very astute, you know, person who knows this case really well, and you're like, you know what, Uncovered, you guys missed a huge event. We want to know that. So we definitely send that to us. Our goal is to kind of compile what we can find, but we know there's a lot of things we're going to miss. And that's where the community really comes in to help us put this case together. So we've got all these events here. So I can scroll down, I can see all this information. Again, if you're a more Murray person, you know I've got a lot of missing events here, so don't look so close at the details. But here I've got an event. I'm looking at it here. I see it highlighted on the map, so I can get a sense of generally where this happened. And I can get a little more information about this event. So I see some information, I see where it happened. I know the people who are related to this event, so who was there or who is somehow related. And I can see the sources of information. So where did Uncovered get the information to pull this event into the timeline? And this is where that is. But if you see something and you don't think it's right, you don't think that information is correct, that can happen. Flag this event. Let us know. That's not, you know, maybe you don't think it's right. Maybe you think that's not a good source. That's definitely the information we want to know, because again, we're all kind of building this together. So I'm looking at this information. I want to know a little bit more about this location. I can click on it. I can learn a little bit more about this location, because we know sometimes things don't, you know, just happen at one location. So you know, there's a couple of things that happen here. So I can get a little more information here. I can see some more information about the location. And if I want to, I can go ahead and filter that timeline by this location. Okay. Finally, I think that's about it for me. I've got some people information here. I think that's it. So I'll pause there. Anyone have any initial thoughts, questions? Do we want to take this offline? I know we're over time, so I definitely don't want to keep everyone.
I see a lot of people liking what they see. Awesome. And as Anna mentioned, this is super sneak peek. So we are building this in real time, and we hope to roll it out soon. So it's important to get your feedback. So thank you so much from not only having this conversation tonight, getting to meet new people, but also learning more about what we're hoping to build and how we want to bring you along on that journey. So again, thank you so much. You all saw that, as Anna said, y'all kind of drank through the fire hose a little bit if we showed you all that information. So maybe take it, sit on it a little bit, maybe respond back to us and, hey, have you thought about this? Or here's a really cool feature. Let us know and we'll incorporate that. And then moving forward, we hope to have regular iterations like this, bringing different citizen detectives kind of working in our community to introduce each other, but also to have this time to kind of talk, to kind of share not only the cases that we're working on, the sources that we're utilizing and things that we want to learn. So we can have this kind of be our work process. And then we want to introduce you to that community platform that we talked about. So look for us in your inbox the next couple of weeks to kind of unveil that, to kind of bring you all in there and direct you to a case that's in our pipeline. So maybe that could be a workspace of, here's a case that we're working on. We hope to kind of get your feedback and utilize that as a workspace. But again, that's also a tool that we want to get your feedback on too. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. And before I kind of let everyone go, because again, thank you for spending an extra half hour with us than we intended. Any other questions? I'm just going to jump into this chat real quick and see if there's anything else. No, just a lot of really great. So appreciate that. That's wonderful. Thank you. Great. Well, thank you again so much. Again, while being your inbox, I'll following you up and then introducing you on our platform so we can keep this conversation going. And as I said, we hope to do this in the future. So please come and invite someone. I know you all are in other networks. So if you're in a Facebook group or you have a friend or you have someone you went to CrimeCon with, I know we talked a lot about that, invite them to come too and be part of this conversation. And as we start to grow this community, so please extend that invitation also. All right. Well, thank you so much. And you all have a wonderful St. Patrick's night. And we'll see you on the internet. All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Ashley, are you going to be on for a sec that I could ask a quick question? I didn't want to hold everyone else up.
Of course, of course.
Ashley and Rachel, or whoever wants to stick around. So when you talked about the, God, what did you call it? Your special
superpower.
Superpower, yes. So I was in the military my entire career. I worked as an interrogator and also as a targeting analyst, intelligence analyst. So I collected a lot of information on the bad guys and built packages for them, looking for these guys. So all my experience has been using tools for the government and army. So I feel like I don't know where I should be looking in open source or just jumping in and Googling something. Like I don't know where to go and translate those skills to outside of Department of Defense. So I think a list of resources, maybe if in the future you guys have that, would be helpful to people like myself that just got out of the service and don't have as much experience outside of DOD.
Wonderful. Have you downloaded our Citizen Detective Guides or not?
I did.
Okay.
And I actually volunteered to research one of the cases. I have to apologize. I wasn't able to. My mom passed away last month and a half ago, and it's been terrible.
Sorry.
And I also started my PhD again. So I have a 1-year-old.
You got a lot going on.
Full time. Oh, and this 1-year-old is It's about to be 2, and she started her terrible twos early.
Oh no.
So in addition to full-time work. So it's a little crazy, but this is my passion. It's something that I would really love to do. So I really want to learn how I can translate this and do this in, you know, my free time, whenever that is.
Yeah, you know, well, we want to amplify as much as that free time as you have and make sure that you're doing something that you love and you're passionate about.
Awesome.
So yeah, you said you downloaded it, take a look. Rachel and I, maybe we can kind of connect on maybe some distinct things that maybe Jeanette could maybe work on some cases that we have. So maybe, I know sometimes it's really overwhelming of like a huge case, where do I start? But maybe we could start to brainstorm some small little things you could work on and maybe build up.
Yeah, I love that section on the what's left to be uncovered. That's amazing, because it seems a little less overwhelming if, you know, if someone like myself could jump to the, you know, read the case, but jump to that section and see what little bit they could go after. That's awesome.
Awesome. It's so good to hear that feedback too. And we know too that there are over 200,000 unsolved cold cases. So when you think of that giant number, that's huge. But as we start to break it down, and what we hope to do with our platform, and to show you that while this may be one big monolith number, but individually these were people, here's their story, here's how you can learn more, and here's how you can help. So we're hoping to do that with what we're building, but we're also hoping to activate each and every one of you and people who aren't here tonight too, with some of those skills and some of those opportunities to fill those gaps in.
Yeah, and you want to do so much. It's like I read all these cases, I'm like, oh, I'd love to help with this one, and for some reason that one touches me too, and you want to do that one. So it's really hard not to.
For sure. We actually did a survey at the end of 2019 where we asked just 500 people who are interested in true crime, like, what would spur you to action? What would kind of make you do something else? And number 1 was knowing the victim, which would kind of be obvious to some of us. But also 2 was just location of, you know, this was in my hometown. This is something that I know, or that I feel familiar enough in the environment that I feel like I could be at least a local expert on some of this information. So as we're starting to do that, we want to build in those opportunities to show you, like with Anna, it was like, you can even filter to see what's near you. Because you might know something that someone else, like you might have gone to high school with someone, or you know someone who lived here, or you can even verify an address or location like that. We want to get down to that minutia as well, so everyone feels like they have an opportunity to contribute. And I know, I don't remember who maybe mentioned it before, but wanting to know like when I can jump in, where I can do that. We want everyone to feel like they can do that, that they don't have to have, you know, a huge amount of street cred to kind of jump in to do this. We want thoughtful people who are doing it the right way and utilizing the right tools, but we want everyone to feel like they can contribute. So thank you so much for sharing, Jeanette, just how you're interested in it. Like, we want to be able to find an opportunity for you to work on this too, since you're so passionate about it.
Well, it's also nice to see something on the site that she showed also, how you could share it on Facebook. Like, that's something simple that I can do. And I thought that was so little that wasn't doing much, but I mean, you're right. I mean, I don't know who knows somebody that knows somebody or that lived in a particular area. So something as simple as that is something that, you know, I'm on Facebook every day. It's something I can share one a day or something, you know.
Yeah, and so many of the cases too don't get as much media attention, unfortunately. Some of them we know a lot about, which that is wonderful because those are still unsolved and they need attention. But some cases have little to no attention. So even if you're sharing it, you're still keeping it in the public conversation, even through the power of the internet, that it's rising in search engines, so people are even seeing it more. That helps too. And we may not think so, but that notion of collective impact, that collectively we could have a greater impact, even if we're doing these small things, can truly be real, specifically right here.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, ladies.
No, thank you.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Look forward to the next one.
Yes, definitely. Awesome.
Thanks,
thank
Jeanette.
you all so much.